Hi everyone, it is Amphibian Week, so I have a quick short video to start with.
Hi, I'm Murray from Sesame Street, and I'm looking for the word on the street. What's the word on the street?
Amphibian.
What is an amphibian?
An animal.
They live in the water.
And they live on land.
Yeah. An amphibian is a cold-blooded animal that has thin, moist skin and goes through metamorphosis.
What kind of animals are amphibians?
A frog, salamander, and toads.
Keep listening for the word amphibian today on Sesame Street.
Amphibian.
That's the word on the street. Look how he walks.
Okay, so can you say it? The word is amphibians. We'll go over the poster in a little bit. We have some reading to do first. Now, most amphibians are some type of frog, toad, salamander, or newt. And there's lots of different types of frogs and toads and salamanders and newts. Actually, I believe there's about 7,000 different kinds of amphibians. So one really cool thing about amphibians is that they have 2 lives. So you're probably wondering what that means. Well, I'm going to read this section right now. It explains it pretty well. Okay. It says, animals that belong to the amphibian group have 2 lives. These animals spend part of their lives underwater, breathing with gills, and the rest of their lives on land, breathing with lungs. So amphibians are usually born in the water, like fish. And because they're in the water, they breathe through gills, because there's not really air to breathe underwater. And when you have lungs, you need air to breathe. So as they grow into adults, they lose their gills and develop lungs. It's pretty cool. And it's for this reason that almost all amphibians live near water. And most of them, pretty much all of them, live by fresh water. I think there's only one amphibian that we know of that lives in salt water. So most amphibians live in fresh water or by fresh water. So amphibians are also vertebrates. They have a backbone or a spine, and the backbone gives an animal its shape and structure. We've talked about that a lot. Amphibians are cold-blooded. Their body temperature depends on the temperature of their environment. And then again, it says some examples of amphibians are toads, frogs, salamanders, and newts. Okay, so take out your vocabulary books. We have 3 words to add today, and that's all we'll add for the whole week. You can see I finally colored mine all in. And you're going to flip to a new page. The first word we're going to add is gill. Usually, when we think of gills, we think of fish. Fish have gills to breathe underwater. But as we just learned, amphibians have gills too, at least when they're young, right? Grown-up amphibians don't all have gills. So the definition says, a fish breathes through this organ on the side of its body. And as we know, it's not just a fish, but We'll write what the definition says here, and we can add more information in our sentence. Okay, so you're going to put gill in the word box. The definition is a little longer, so make sure you start with small writing at the top of the box so that you have room for the whole thing. All right, go ahead and pause. I'm going to move on in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so you should have the word and the definition. I wanted to add information about amphibians because the definition didn't mention them. So I wrote, some amphibians have gills like fish that they use to breathe. Sorry, my writing's a little messy. Okay, go ahead and pause. I'm going to continue in 3, 2, 1. Our next word is freshwater. You may remember I said almost all amphibians live in or by fresh water. And that just means any water that does not contain salt, like in lakes, rivers, and ponds. So go ahead and pause your screen. You can write that in. I will move on in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Do you know what the opposite of freshwater is? That's our next word. Saltwater. So that is water that contains salt. But the ocean has salt water. You know what? I forgot the sentence. What am I thinking? Okay, go back to freshwater. I made a mistake. For my sentence for freshwater, I wrote, most amphibians start their lives in freshwater. So go ahead and pause, write that in, and then we'll go to saltwater. I'll move on in 3, 2, 1. Okay, back to saltwater. You'll need to go to your next page, write in the word saltwater and the definition. Salt that contain, or water that contains salt. The ocean has salt water. I'm going to move on in 3, 2, 1. Now for the definition, I wrote that the crab-eating frog is the only saltwater amphibian that we know of. We're always discovering new animals, especially in the ocean, which is such a big place. The crab-eating frog is the only saltwater amphibian. And go ahead and pause. I'm going to move on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So I did want to show you the Brainpop video on amphibians. I'll go ahead and get that started. Go amphibians. It's a short one, just 2 minutes.
Hey, put him down. How would you like it if someone picked you up by your tail? Oh, you know what I mean. Dear Tim and Moby, what are amphibians? From Lay. Amphibians are vertebrate or backbone-bearing animals like frogs, salamanders, and newts. Their ancestors were the first vertebrates to venture onto land about 370 million years ago. Existing amphibians are split into three groups. Anurans, or frogs and toads, have short bodies, strong legs, and no tails. Urodels have long bodies, short legs, and flattened tails for swimming. Organisms in the group Apoda are called caecilians. These guys are practically blind, worm-like creatures that look a lot like snakes. Most amphibians split their lives between land and water in a similar way. They're born in the water, stick to the land as adults, and return to the water to breed. Well, many amphibians undergo a metamorphosis that lets them move from a water life to a land life. Take frogs. A frog starts out as a fertilized egg cell in the water. The egg develops into a tadpole that lives in the water and breathes using gills. As the tadpole matures, it grows legs and its body shape changes. When metamorphosis is complete, the frog has a set of lungs that allows it to breathe outside of the water. Strong back legs help it to move on land, and big eyes and a long tongue help it spot and catch prey. Amphibians are ectothermic, or cold-blooded. That means they depend on their surroundings to establish their body temperature. In extreme hot and extreme cold weather, amphibians sometimes go through a period of reduced metabolic activity called torpor. It's a little bit like hibernation. Yeah, I always thought it would be fun to slow down and just sleep. Hey, what are you doing down there? What? I'm not gonna pour water on you.
Okay. So, the last thing we have is to fill out our classification cards. My frog ended up a little bit creepy. Those red eyes. You can color yours however you want. But if you do look up frogs in images, you'll see that they come in all different colors. And some of them actually do have red eyes. So turn to your amphibian card. And we have a lot to add on this one. You'll see on the poster, we have a list of 5 things, right? We have live on land and in water, right? They have 2 lives. They lay eggs. They have moist skin. And this is what really makes them different from a reptile. Reptiles have more scaly skin. They also have webbed feet. Right, they need those if they're in the water. And they are cold-blooded. Now again, there's one thing missing from our poster. Right? You might remember by now it's been missing on a lot of our posters. So we are going to be adding vertebrates, which means you need 6 things on your card. So let's see how I can do this. I'll put the poster here. And I'll put my cards here. And you'll see I had to renumber things a little bit to fit in 6. So I would copy the poster. It's a little bigger. And then after copying the poster, you'll just add vertebrates at the very bottom. Just make sure you leave room for that. If it really comes down to space, you could write along the side here. It's fine. So I'll hold this up. You can go ahead and pause. And get those on your card. Make sure you add vertebrates. And I'm going to move on in 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's it for day 1. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking more at frogs. We'll read about frogs, and we are also going to be talking about the life cycle of frogs. Also this week, we will be exploring other amphibians, including toads, and some salamanders, and some newts. We will also be talking about Venn diagrams, which are used to compare and contrast. So we have a lot to do. Stay cool. It's going to be a hot week, very hot week, but we have some nicer weather to look forward to next week. So hang in there, and yeah, I hope you are all well. Bye, everyone.